Amelia Turner's tears fell into the dust at her feet as she stared at the wooden gate of her father's ranch, now closed to her forever. The early morning sun cast long shadows across the Oklahoma Territory, and despite the warmth of June 1889, she felt nothing but cold dread settling in her bones. Behind her stood only a small cart with her hastily packed belongings, and the horse her father had generously allowed her to take when he cast her out. "No daughter of mine will bring such shame upon this family," Philip Anderson had declared just hours ago, his voice carrying across the family's grand dining room where her two younger sisters sat in stunned silence. "You will leave at first light, and you will not return." Her crime was simple in the eyes of Guthrie society. She was with child, unmarried, and the father of her baby was nowhere to be found. Jackson Miller, with his smooth words and handsome smile, had promised her everything while passing through town on cattle business 3 months ago. She had given him her heart and her virtue, only to discover last week that he had a wife back in Texas. When Amelia had managed to send word about her condition, his response was swift and cruel: denial, followed by silence. Her father's discovery of her pregnancy had come only yesterday, when her mother noticed her morning illness and confronted her. By nightfall, her fate had been sealed banishment from the only home she'd ever known. Amelia wiped her eyes with the back of her hand and climbed unsteadily onto the cart. At 20 years old, she had never traveled alone beyond Guthrie's boundaries. With only $30 to her name and nowhere to go, she faced a grim future indeed. "Miss Anderson," the voice startled her. Turning in her seat, she saw a rider approaching from the direction of town. Even at a distance, she recognized the tall figure of Adam Thornton, foreman of the neighboring ranch. Though they'd exchanged only passing greetings at church and town socials, his reputation as a hard-working, honest man preceded him. At 27, he was respected throughout the county for his skill with horses and fair dealings. He pulled his chestnut stallion to a stop beside her cart. "Where are you headed so early, Miss Anderson?" His keen blue eyes seemed to take in her tears and the cart full of belongings in one glance. Pride kept her chin high. "I am leaving, Mr. Thornton. My business is my own." His expression softened. "Forgive my intrusion." He paused, removing his hat to reveal dark blonde hair. "I happened to be riding past the Anderson place when I overheard your father last night." He looked uncomfortable. The windows were open and voices carry in the evening air. Shame washed over her. "Then you know I am ruined." The words tasted bitter on her tongue. "I know you've been wronged," he corrected firmly. "That Miller fellow, I never trusted him. Too slick by half." Amelia looked away. "It hardly matters now." "Where will you go?" Adam asked, his voice gentler than she'd ever heard it. "I thought perhaps to my aunt in Kansas City, though I haven't seen her in years and she may not welcome." Her voice trailed off as she placed a protective hand over her still flat stomach. Adam was silent for a long moment, his gaze fixed on the horizon where the sun continued its ascent. When he looked back at her, determination had replaced the concern in his eyes. "Marry me." The words hung in the air between them, impossible and unexpected. "I beg your pardon," Amelia whispered, certain she had misheard. "Marry me," he repeated, more firmly this time. "Today. Now. Before you leave Guthrie." She stared at him in disbelief. "Mr. Thornton, you cannot be serious. You know my condition. I am carrying another man's child. I know you're a good woman who deserves better than abandonment." He dismounted in one fluid motion and stood beside her cart. "I've watched you these past 2 years, Miss Anderson. You're kind to everyone, hardworking and stronger than you realize. Any man would be lucky to call you wife. But the child would be mine in name and in raising," he said simply. "No one need know different. Why would you do this?" Amelia searched his face for signs of mockery or ulterior motives, but found only sincerity. "Because it's the right thing to do," he said, then added more softly, "and because I've admired you from afar longer than is proper to admit." Amelia's mind raced. Marriage to Adam Thornton would save her from disgrace and provide for her child, but it would bind her to a man she barely knew. "This is madness," she whispered. "Perhaps," he agreed with a slight smile, "but sometimes madness is wiser than reason. I'm offering you my name, my protection, and my promise to care for you and your child. I ask only for your respect in return. Love." He hesitated. "Love may come in time, or it may not. That will be as God wills it." Amelia looked back at her father's ranch one last time. There was nothing for her there now but rejection and shame. "Yes," she said quietly, turning back to Adam. "I accept your proposal, Mr. Thornton." Relief washed over his face. "Adam," he corrected, "if we're to be married, you should use my given name." "Adam," she repeated, the unfamiliar name strange on her lips. "And I am Amelia." He nodded and extended his hand to help her down from the cart. "We'll go to Pastor Wilson right away and then to my homestead. It's modest compared to your father's place, but it's paid for and the land is good." As they rode toward town, Adam on his stallion, Amelia following in her cart, she wondered what madness had possessed her to accept his proposal. Yet with each passing minute, a strange calm settled over her. Whatever his reasons, Adam Thornton had thrown her a lifeline when she was drowning. Pastor Wilson's surprise at their appearance was evident, but to his credit, he asked few questions. Within an hour, Amelia Turner became Amelia Thornton, with only the pastor's wife and elderly deacon as witnesses. The simple gold band Adam slipped onto her finger had belonged to his mother, he explained quietly. As they left the small church, Adam helped her into the cart once more. "I'll take you to the homestead now, if that's all right. We can come back for any supplies you need tomorrow." Amelia nodded, unable to find words for the tumult of emotions washing through her. She had awoken an outcast, and now found herself a wife, a stranger's wife. The Thornton homestead lay 7 miles outside Guthrie, a neat cabin with a small barn and corral set against the backdrop of rolling hills. As they approached, Amelia saw evidence of careful stewardship: sturdy fences, well-maintained outbuildings, and a small garden plot beside the house. "It's not much," Adam said as he helped her down from the cart, "but it's home. I built the cabin myself when I claimed the land 4 years ago." "It's lovely," Amelia replied honestly, admiring the craftsmanship evident in the sturdy porch and the intricate carving around the door frame. Adam carried her trunk inside while she stood nervously on the porch. When he returned, he seemed to sense her hesitation. "You're welcome here, Amelia," he said gently. "This is your home now, too." The interior was simple but tidy: a main room with a stone fireplace, a small kitchen area, and 2 doors leading to what she assumed were bedrooms. Plain but serviceable furniture filled the space, and to her surprise, bookshelves lined one wall filled with volumes. "You read," she said, unable to hide her pleasure at the discovery. A smile softened his weathered features. "Every chance I get. Not much else to do during winter evenings." Amelia ran her fingers along the spine's history, poetry, novels, and practical guides to ranching and agriculture. "May I?" "They're as much yours as mine now," he replied. He showed her to the smaller of the 2 bedrooms. "This will be yours," he said. "I'll take the room off the kitchen." Surprised, she turned to him. "But we're married." A flush crept up his neck. "In name for now. I meant what I said, Amelia. I offer protection and respect. I won't claim a husband's rights unless you wish it." The decency of this gesture brought unexpected tears to her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. Adam cleared his throat. I need to see to the stock. Please make yourself at home. There's food in the pantry if you're hungry." Left alone, Amelia sat on the edge of the narrow bed, overwhelmed by the day's events. She had gained a husband and lost a family in the span of hours. Placing her hand over her still flat stomach, she wondered what future awaited her child in this strange new life. "We'll be all right," she whispered, though whether she was reassuring the baby or herself, she couldn't say. The days that followed settled into an unexpected rhythm. Adam rose before dawn to tend the cattle and horses that were his livelihood, while Amelia took over the running of the household. They circled each other cautiously, two strangers bound by vows neither had anticipated making. To her surprise, Adam proved to be a considerate companion. Each evening they shared meals at the small table, and he told her about his day, the mare about to foal, the fence that needed mending, his plans to expand the herd come spring. In turn, he listened with genuine interest to her ideas for improving the kitchen garden or reorganizing the pantry. A week after their hasty wedding, Adam broached a difficult subject over supper. "People in town are talking," he said carefully. "Word of our marriage has spread, and there are questions about the suddenness of it." Amelia set down her fork. "They suspect the truth," he nodded. "Some do. Mrs. Wilkins at the general store asked me outright if you were in a family way." "What did you tell her?" Amelia's voice was barely audible. "That we'd been courting quietly for months, not wanting to cause a stir since I work for your father's neighbor, and that when your father objected to the match, we decided to marry right away rather than wait." He met her eyes. "I also said we were expecting a child and that we're both overjoyed about it." Amelia stared at him in surprise. "You claimed the child as yours." "It is mine," he said simply. "From the moment I asked you to be my wife, that baby became my responsibility and my joy. I won't have anyone thinking differently." Unexpected warmth bloomed in Amelia's chest. "You're a good man, Adam Thornton." He looked embarrassed by the praise. "Just doing what's right." After a moment, he added, "I've been thinking if you're agreeable, we should go into town together on Saturday. Show a united front, so to speak." The prospect of facing Guthrie's gossips made Amelia's stomach churn, but she recognized the wisdom in his suggestion. "Yes," she agreed. "That would be best." Saturday dawned clear and warm. Amelia dressed carefully in her best blue gingham dress, arranging her honey blonde hair in a neat bun at the nape of her neck. When she emerged from her bedroom, Adam was waiting, freshly shaven and wearing a clean shirt. "You look lovely," he said, the admiration in his eyes making her blush. They rode into town in the wagon, Adam's strong presence beside her both comforting and nerve-wracking. As they approached Guthrie's Main Street, Amelia steeled herself for the curious stares and whispered comments. Their first stop was the general store. Mrs. Wilkins, the owner's wife and Guthrie's most notorious gossip, greeted them with poorly disguised curiosity. "Why, Mrs. Thornton, how lovely to see you." The new name still sounded strange to Amelia's ears. "Such a whirlwind romance you two had, the whole town's talking about it." Before Amelia could formulate a response, Adam's hand settled reassuringly on the small of her back. "Sometimes when you know it's right, there's no sense in waiting," he said, smiling down at Amelia with such convincing affection that she almost believed it herself. Mrs. Wilkins's eyes darted to Amelia's waistline, which showed no signs of her condition yet. "And I hear congratulations are in order for more than just the wedding." Adam's smile never faltered. "We've been blessed, yes. Amelia will make a wonderful mother." The genuine pride in his voice brought unexpected tears to Amelia's eyes. She blinked them away quickly and managed a smile. "We're very happy." Throughout the morning, They faced similar encounters, curious questions thinly veiled as congratulations, searching looks at Amelia's figure, and not so subtle attempts to calculate dates. Each time, Adam stood firm beside her, his hand often finding hers or resting protectively at her waist, his responses unfailingly proud and loving. It was all for show, Amelia reminded herself. A performance to protect her reputation and that of her unborn child. Yet she couldn't deny the comfort she found in his steady presence, or the strange flutter in her chest when he looked at her with those practiced, adoring glances. Their final stop was the church, where Pastor Wilson greeted them warmly. "Mrs. Thornton, you're looking well. Marriage agrees with you." "Thank you, Pastor," she replied, acutely aware of how close they stood to her family's usual pew, a pew she would likely never share with her parents and sisters again. As if reading her thoughts, Pastor Wilson's expression softened. "I've spoken with your father, my dear. He's struggling with his decision, though his pride prevents him from admitting it." Hope flared briefly in Amelia's heart. "Has he said anything about me?" The pastor's kind eyes held regret. "Not directly, but your mother asks after your welfare and your sisters miss you terribly." Adam's hand found hers, his fingers intertwining with her own in silent support. As they left the church, Amelia caught sight of a familiar figure across the street, her youngest sister, Beatrice, just emerging from the dressmaker's shop. For a moment, their eyes met, and Beatrice's face lit up with recognition. She took a half-step forward before their father appeared behind her, his stern gaze falling on Amelia and Adam. Philip Anderson's expression hardened. He placed a hand on Beatrice's shoulder and steered her firmly away, without so much as a nod of acknowledgement toward his eldest daughter. The rejection cut deep. Amelia stood frozen, the pain as fresh as the day he'd cast her out. "Amelia." Adam's voice drew her back from the brink of tears. "We should head home." Home. The word fell strangely on her ears. Her father's ranch had been home for 20 years, yet now a cabin she'd known for barely a week held that title. The ride back to the homestead passed in silence, Amelia lost in thoughts of what she'd lost, Adam respectfully allowing her space for her grief. It wasn't until they were nearly home that he spoke. "I'm sorry about your father," he said quietly. "Give him time. He may come around." Amelia shook her head. "You don't know him. Philip Anderson never changes his mind once it's set." Adam's hands tightened on the reins. "Then he's a fool to throw away a daughter like you." The fierceness in his voice surprised her. Looking up, she saw genuine anger in his normally calm expression. "Thank you," she said softly, "for today, for everything." His features softened. "You don't need to thank me, Amelia. We're in this together now, together." The word lingered in her mind as they arrived home and settled into their evening routine. As she prepared supper, Amelia found herself watching Adam as he moved about the cabin, his tall frame ducking slightly under the low doorway to his room, his hands gentle as he built up the fire against the evening chill, his voice soft as he hummed a tune she didn't recognize. This man, still largely a stranger, had saved her from disgrace and claimed her child as his own. Whatever his reasons, she owed him a debt she could never repay. That night, as she lay in her narrow bed listening to the distant hooting of an owl, Amelia made a silent promise to be the best wife she could to Adam Thornton, even if their marriage had begun as one of convenience rather than love. As June gave way to July, life at the Thornton homestead fell into a comfortable pattern. Adam worked from sunup to sundown, tending his growing herd and making improvements to the property. Amelia took to her role as mistress of the household with determination, keeping the cabin spotless, tending the garden, and preparing meals that brought a smile of appreciation to Adam's face. They still maintained separate bedrooms, though their interactions grew more comfortable by the day. Adam never pressed for more than she offered, treating her with unfailing courtesy and respect. But sometimes, when he thought she wasn't looking, Amelia caught him watching her with an expression that made her heart beat faster. As her condition became more apparent, Adam's attentiveness increased. He insisted she rest during the heat of the day, brought her wild strawberries he found while checking fence lines, and spent his evenings crafting a wooden cradle for the baby, his skilled hands working the wood with loving precision. One evening in late July, as they sat on the porch enjoying the cooler air after a sweltering day, Adam surprised her with a question. "What was your dream, Amelia, before?" He gestured vaguely, "Before everything changed." She considered the question, watching fireflies begin to flicker in the gathering dusk. "I wanted to teach," she admitted. "I always loved learning, and I thought perhaps I could teach in Guthrie School someday." Adam nodded thoughtfully. "You'd make a fine teacher. You have patience and kindness." "It hardly matters now," Amelia said, one hand resting on her slightly rounded belly. "My life has taken a different path." "Dreams can change," Adam agreed, "but they needn't die. Perhaps someday when our child is older you might still teach our child." The word still startled her sometimes, this gentle claiming of her baby as their shared responsibility and joy. "What about you?" she asked. "What were your dreams?" Adam leaned back in his chair, his profile strong against the darkening sky. "This," he said simply. "Land of my own, a herd to build a home." He paused. "A family." "And now you have those things," Amelia observed. He turned to look at her, his blue eyes serious in the fading light. "I do, though not in the way I imagined." An odd tension filled the air between them. Amelia found herself wondering, not for the first time, what it would be like if theirs were a true marriage in all ways. The thought brought heat to her cheeks, and she looked away. "I should check on the bread for tomorrow," she said, rising awkwardly from her chair. Adam stood immediately to help her. As his hand touched her arm to steady her, that same strange warmth flared through her body. For a moment, they stood close, too close, and Amelia could feel the solid strength of him, smell the clean scent of soap and leather that always clung to him. "Thank you," she murmured, stepping away. "Good night, Adam." "Good night, Amelia," he replied, his voice deeper than usual. "Sleep well." In the privacy of her room, Amelia pressed cool hands to her flushed cheeks. This would not do. Adam had offered her marriage as protection, not out of passion or desire. That she was beginning to feel something more than gratitude toward him was her problem, not his. Yet as the weeks passed, such moments multiplied. A lingering glance over breakfast. His hand on the small of her back as they walked to the barn together. The way he smiled when she entered a room, as though her presence alone brightened his day. By mid-August, Amelia's condition was unmistakable. Her dresses grew tight across her expanding middle, and the first fluttering movements of the baby brought both wonder and anxiety. Adam insisted on accompanying her on her first visit to Dr. Parker in town, waiting patiently outside the examination room while the doctor confirmed that both she and the baby appeared healthy. "Everything is progressing normally," Dr. Parker told her. "The baby should arrive sometime in early January if my calculations are correct." January seemed both too soon and too distant. Amelia thanked him and emerged to find Adam pacing the small waiting room, his face lighting up when he saw her. "All is well?" he asked immediately. "All is well," she confirmed. "The doctor says January for the birth." Relief washed over his features. "That's good news. We'll have plenty of time to prepare." He hesitated. "I thought, if you'd like, we might look at fabric for baby clothes while we're in town." The thoughtfulness of the suggestion touched her. "I'd like that very much." At the general store, Mrs. Wilkins was only too happy to show them the selection of soft flannel and cotton suitable for infant garments. As Amelia examined a particularly fine white cotton, she became aware of whispers behind her. Barely married 2 months and already showing that much. I'd wager that baby will be mighty early when it arrives. Shameful how these hasty marriages try to cover up what everyone can plainly see. Amelia's fingers froze on the fabric, humiliation burning through her. Before she could react, Adam was beside her, his voice carrying clearly through the store. "Have you chosen what you like, my dear? Our son or daughter deserves only the best, just like their mother." He turned to face the gossiping women directly, his expression pleasant but his eyes hard. "Mrs. Davis, Mrs. Evers, good afternoon. I trust your families are well." The women murmured uncomfortable acknowledgments, clearly embarrassed at being caught in their speculation. "We're very excited about our coming child," Adam continued conversationally. "Amelia will be a wonderful mother. I'm blessed beyond measure to have her as my wife." Taking the fabric from Amelia's trembling hands, he addressed Mrs. Wilkins. "We'll take 5 yards of this, please, and 2 of the blue flannel as well." The ride home was quiet, Amelia fighting tears of mingled humiliation and gratitude. "I'm sorry you had to hear that," Adam said finally. "Small minds and loose tongues are Guthrie's greatest exports, it seems." A reluctant laugh escaped her. "You handled it beautifully, thank you." He shook his head. "No need for thanks between us. I won't have anyone speaking ill of you, Amelia." Not ever. The fierceness of his declaration stirred something deep within her. When they arrived home, she impulsively reached for his hand as he helped her down from the wagon. "Adam," she said softly, "I'm grateful every day that you found me that morning." His eyes darkened, and for a breathless moment she thought he might kiss her. Instead, he lifted her hand to his lips, pressing a gentle kiss to her knuckles. "As am I," he replied. "As am I." That night, Amelia dreamed of Adam, his strong hands, his kind eyes, his lips on hers instead of her hand. She woke flushed and confused, wondering when gratitude had begun transforming into something deeper and more complicated. September brought the first hints of autumn to the Oklahoma Territory. The oppressive heat gave way to pleasant days and cool nights, and the land began its gradual shift toward golden dormancy. The baby grew steadily, making its presence known through increasingly vigorous movements that sometimes took Amelia's breath away. On a particularly fine afternoon, Adam surprised her by returning from town with a package wrapped in brown paper. "For you," he said, a hint of shyness in his manner as he handed it to her. Inside, Amelia found a beautiful shawl of soft wool in a deep blue that matched her eyes. "Adam, it's lovely," she breathed, running her fingers over the fine material. "Winter will be here before we know it," he explained, clearly pleased by her reaction. "I want you and the baby to stay warm." The thoughtfulness of the gift brought tears to her eyes, unwelcome evidence of how her emotions seemed constantly near the surface these days. "Thank you. I shall treasure it." Adam reached out tentatively, his hand hovering near her rounded belly. "May I?" No one had touched her growing baby bump besides the doctor, not even Adam, despite his claim to fatherhood. The request surprised and moved her. "Of course," she whispered. Gently, he placed his large hand on the curve of her stomach. As if in response, the baby gave a particularly strong kick right against his palm. Adam's eyes widened in wonder. "That's quite a greeting," he said with a laugh. "He or she is very active these days." Amelia smiled, placing her own hand next to his. "Especially in the evenings when I'm trying to rest." They stood there for a long moment, hands side by side on the life growing within her, a strangely intimate tableau that blurred the careful boundaries they'd established. "Adam," Amelia began hesitantly. "May I ask you something?" "Anything," he replied, reluctantly withdrawing his hand. "Why did you really offer to marry me that day? The truth, please." The directness of the question seemed to catch him off guard. He moved to the window, looking out at the land he'd worked so hard to tame. "I told you it was the right thing to do," he said finally. "But why?" she pressed. "Many men would have ridden past and pretended not to see a disgraced woman with her belongings in a cart. What made you stop?" Adam was silent for so long that Amelia thought he might not answer. When he turned back to her, his expression was unguarded in a way she'd never seen before. "I've admired you since the first time I saw you," he admitted quietly. "You were at the Independence Day celebration 2 years ago, helping the smaller children with their races. You had such patience and kindness, and when you laughed—" He shook his head. "I wanted to introduce myself properly, but I was just a ranch hand then with nothing to offer a woman of your standing." Surprise rendered Amelia momentarily speechless. "I had no idea." "I made sure of that," he said with a rueful smile. "It wasn't my place to court Philip Anderson's eldest daughter, but I watched you whenever our paths crossed in town, at church. I saw how you treated everyone with the same respect, regardless of their station. How you slipped extra coins to the widow Jenkins when you thought no one was looking. How your face lit up around children." He took a step toward her. "When I heard what happened with Miller and then your father's decision." Anger flashed in his eyes. "I couldn't bear the thought of you facing the world alone, not when I had a home to offer." "So it was pity," Amelia whispered. "No." The word was sharp, definitive. "Never pity, it was." He struggled for the right words. "It was the chance to do right by a woman I've admired from afar. To build a life with someone I respect deeply, even if the circumstances weren't what either of us would have chosen." The honesty of his answer moved her deeply. "Thank you for telling me the truth." Adam looked at her intently. "I've never lied to you, Amelia, not once, and I never will." The promise hung between them, weighted with significance beyond the words themselves. In that moment, something shifted subtly in their relationship, a step toward something truer than the arrangement that had brought them together. That night, as Amelia prepared for bed, she found herself lingering before the small mirror in her room, studying her changing body. Her face had softened, her eyes seemed brighter, and the swell of her abdomen was now pronounced beneath her nightgown. She placed both hands on the roundness, feeling the life within her, a child who would bear the Thornton name, who would grow up calling Adam father. The thought no longer seemed strange or unsettling. Instead, it felt increasingly right. October arrived with a spectacular display of autumn colors. The cottonwoods along the creek turned brilliant gold, while the oak and maple scattered through the hills flamed scarlet and orange. Adam spent long days preparing the ranch for winter, securing the barn, splitting firewood that he stacked high beside the house, and ensuring the cattle had sheltered areas for the coming cold. Amelia, now in her 6th month of pregnancy, found her energy waning as the baby grew heavier. Simple tasks left her breathless, and her back ached constantly. Despite her attempts to maintain her usual routine, Adam insisted she rest more. "The work will wait," he told her firmly one morning when he found her trying to haul water from the well. Taking the bucket from her hands, he added, "Your job now is taking care of yourself and the baby. Let me handle the rest." His concern was touching, but Amelia struggled with feeling useless. "I'm not an invalid," she protested. "I'm simply with child." Adam's expression softened. "I know that. But you're working too hard. Amelia, please, for my peace of mind, if nothing else, allow me to help more." Put that way, she could hardly refuse. Reluctantly, she agreed to let him take over the heavier household chores. True to his word, Adam began rising even earlier to light the stove and fetch water before heading out to his regular duties. In the evenings, he insisted on washing the dishes after supper, shooing her to the comfortable chair by the fire. My mother always said a woman carrying a child was doing the Lord's most important work, he told her one night as she tried to protest his coddling. Said the least a man could do was make sure she had time to rest. Your mother sounds like a wise woman, Amelia observed. Tell me about her. Adam settled into the chair opposite hers, his features softening with memory. She was the strongest person I've ever known. Came west with my father when she was just 17, left everything she knew behind, built a life out of nothing but hard work and hope. Where are they now, your parents? A shadow crossed his face. Gone. Fever took them both when I was 16. That's when I started working ranch jobs, had to make my own way after that. The sorrow in his voice reached into Amelia's heart. I'm sorry, Adam. It must have been terribly hard. He nodded, his gaze on the dancing flames. It was, but they taught me what mattered: honesty, hard work, treating others right. After a moment he added, my father always said a man's true wealth is in the people who love him, not the things he owns. They would be proud of you, Amelia said softly, of the man you've become. Adam looked up, meeting her eyes across the warm space between them. I hope so. The vulnerability in his expression made him appear younger somehow, less the steady, capable rancher and more the boy who'd lost his parents too soon. Without thinking, Amelia rose and moved to his side, placing her hand on his shoulder. I know so. His hand came up to cover hers, warm and strong. For a long moment they remained that way, connected by touch and something deeper that neither was ready to name. The baby chose that moment to deliver a particularly enthusiastic kick. Amelia gasped, and Adam looked up in alarm. What is it? Are you all right? She laughed, taking his hand and placing it on her belly. Feel that? Someone's practicing for the rodeo, I think. The worry in his expression gave way to wonder as the baby kicked again right against his palm. That's amazing, he murmured. Does it hurt? Not exactly, she replied, though it can be quite uncomfortable when a tiny foot finds my ribs. Adam's thumb moved in a gentle circle over the spot where the baby continued to make its presence known. The tenderness of the gesture brought unexpected tears to Amelia's eyes. Here was a man who had no blood connection to the child she carried, yet he touched her with such care, such reverence. Adam, she whispered. Not entirely sure what she meant to say, he looked up, and the raw emotion in his gaze took her breath away. Slowly, as if giving her every chance to pull away, he stood and raised one hand to cup her cheek. Amelia, he said, her name a question and a prayer on his lips. She answered by rising on tiptoes, closing the distance between them. Their first kiss was gentle, tentative, a question being asked and answered in the silent language of touch. When they broke apart, Adam's expression was one of awe. I've wanted to do that since the day we wed, he admitted hoarsely. Why didn't you? She asked, her fingers tracing the strong line of his jaw. I promised you respect, he reminded her. I wanted you to be certain. I'm certain now, Amelia whispered and drew him down for another kiss. That night, Adam moved his belongings into Amelia's room, their room now. Though they did nothing more than hold each other through the night, the shift in their relationship was profound. What had begun as a marriage of convenience was transforming into something real and precious. As autumn deepened toward winter, so too did the bond between them. They learned each other's rhythms and habits, preferences and peculiarities. Amelia discovered that Adam hummed when he was deep in thought, that he preferred his coffee strong enough to stand a spoon in, that he had a surprising talent for whittling intricate shapes from scraps of wood. In turn, Adam learned that Amelia loved thunderstorms but feared snakes, that she could recite long passages of Shakespeare from memory, that she talked in her sleep fragments of conversation that often made no sense but amused him greatly. They were building a marriage day by day, moment by moment, choice by choice. And if its foundation was unconventional, the structure they were creating was no less solid for it. November brought the first frost, and with it a letter from Amelia's youngest sister, Beatrice, delivered secretly by the pastor's wife after church. "Dear Amelia," it read in Beatrice's careful handwriting, "I miss you terribly. Father forbids us to speak of you, but Mother cries at night, and your room remains untouched. I saw you in town with your husband last week. You looked well, and I'm glad. Is it true you're expecting a baby? I pray all will be well with you and the child. Perhaps someday Father will soften his heart. Until then, know that you are loved and missed. Your sister always, Beatrice." The letter brought both joy and pain. Adam found Amelia weeping over it when he returned from checking the herd. Bad news. He asked gently, sitting beside her on the porch swing. She handed him the letter silently. As he read it, his expression darkened with anger on her behalf. "Your father is a stubborn man," he said finally, "but this gives me hope that not all ties are severed." "I miss them," Amelia admitted. "Not my father so much, he was always stern and distant, but my mother and sisters, especially now, with the baby coming." Adam put his arm around her shoulders, drawing her close. "Would you like to write back to Beatrice? I could ensure it reaches her privately." The offer touched her deeply. "You would do that, of course. She's your sister, which makes her my sister now too, in a manner of speaking." Amelia leaned into his embrace, grateful beyond words for his understanding. "I love you, Adam," she said, the words slipping out naturally, unplanned. For a moment he went very still. Then he turned to face her, his eyes searching hers. "Do you mean that?" "Yes," she said simply. "I do." The smile that spread across his face was like sunrise. "I've loved you almost from the beginning," he confessed, "but I didn't dare hope." Words failed them both then, the depth of emotion too great for language. Instead, they held each other as the first snowflakes of the season began to fall, coating the world in pristine white, a new beginning, a clean slate, a promise of beauty to come. December arrived with bitter cold and heavy snow that blanketed the Oklahoma countryside. The Thornton homestead stood like an island in a sea of white, smoke curling from the chimney, the only sign of the life within. Inside, Adam and Amelia had transformed the cabin into a true home, warm with more than just the heat from the fireplace. Amelia's pregnancy was now in its final stages, her body heavy and ungainly with the child that would arrive in mere weeks. Dr. Parker had visited the previous day, pronouncing her healthy but ordering complete rest for the final month. The baby's positioned well, he had assured them. But first babies often take their time, and you'll need your strength for the delivery. Though frustrated by the restrictions, Amelia obeyed. Adam was attentive to the point of hovering, ensuring she had everything she needed within reach before he ventured out for his necessary chores. He hired a local boy, Tommy Fletcher, to help with the livestock so he could spend more time at home, ready to fetch the doctor at the first sign of labor. Christmas approached, bringing with it a tentative message from Amelia's mother, delivered through Pastor Wilson's wife. Elizabeth Anderson wanted to see her daughter before the baby came. "She suggests meeting at the parsonage," Mrs. Wilson explained. "Your father doesn't know she's reaching out." The prospect of reconciliation, even partial, filled Amelia with nervous anticipation. Adam, seeing her anxiety, squeezed her hand reassuringly. "Would you like me to accompany you?" he asked after Mrs. Wilson had left. Amelia considered the question carefully. "No," she decided finally. "This is between my mother and me, but thank you for offering." 2 days later, bundled against the cold, Amelia sat in the Wilsons' small parlor, waiting. When the door opened and her mother entered, the months of separation fell away. Elizabeth Anderson's carefully maintained composure crumbled at the sight of her eldest daughter, now so visibly with child. "Amelia," she whispered, crossing the room in quick strides to embrace her. "My dear girl." They wept together, holding each other close. When they finally drew apart, Elizabeth's hands went instinctively to Amelia's rounded belly. "The baby is well?" she asked anxiously. "Very well," Amelia assured her. "Dr. Parker says we should expect a January arrival." Elizabeth nodded, blinking back fresh tears. "I've missed so much, your father." "I know," Amelia said gently. "You don't need to explain." Her mother's face crumpled with regret. "I should have stood up to him. Should have insisted he accept your marriage at least." She took Amelia's hands in hers. "Are you happy, my dear? Truly, your husband, he treats you well." "Adam is a good man," Amelia replied with complete sincerity. "The best of men. We're very happy." Relief washed over her mother's features. "I'm glad. When I heard you'd married Adam Thornton so suddenly, well, I feared it might have been out of desperation rather than affection." Amelia thought of how to answer. The truth was complex. What had indeed begun as desperation had transformed into deep, genuine love. But the details of that journey were private, sacred to her and Adam alone. "It may have been sudden," she said carefully, "but I couldn't ask for a more loving husband or a better father for my child." They talked for nearly 2 hours, Elizabeth sharing news of Amelia's sisters and the happenings in Guthrie, Amelia describing life on the homestead and her preparations for the baby. As their time drew to a close, Elizabeth pressed a package into Amelia's hands. "For the baby," she explained. "I've been working on it since I heard." Inside was a beautiful hand-knitted blanket in soft cream wool, edged with delicate stitching in blue and pink. "So it will be suitable regardless of whether I have a grandson or granddaughter," Elizabeth explained. Amelia clutched the blanket to her chest, deeply moved by this tangible evidence of her mother's love despite Philip Anderson's edict. "Thank you," she whispered. "This means more than I can say." When they parted, Elizabeth held her daughter fiercely. "I'll come when the baby is born," she promised. "Whatever your father says." Amelia returned home with her heart lighter than it had been in months. Adam met her at the door, his face anxious until he saw her expression. "It went well?" he asked, helping her remove her heavy coat. "Better than I dared hope," Amelia confirmed, showing him the blanket. "And my mother wants to meet you properly. She says she'll come when the baby arrives." Adam's smile was warm with relief. "I'm glad, Amelia. Families should be together, especially at such times." The week of Christmas brought fresh snow and festive spirits. Despite Amelia's condition limiting their activities, she and Adam created their own small celebrations. He cut a young pine from their land and set it up in the corner of the main room, and together they decorated it with paper ornaments Amelia crafted and strings of dried berries and popcorn. On Christmas Eve, Adam surprised her with a special gift, a silver locket on a delicate chain. "It's beautiful," she gasped as he fastened it around her neck. "Open it," he encouraged. Inside was a tiny lock of his hair. "So when the baby comes," he explained, "we can add a lock of his or her hair as well, to keep us both close to your heart." Tears sprang to her eyes at the thoughtfulness of the gift. "I love it," she whispered. "And I love you, Adam Thornton." "As I love you," he replied, kissing her tenderly, "more than I ever thought possible." The remainder of December passed in quiet contentment as they prepared for their child's arrival. Adam completed the cradle he'd been crafting, a beautiful piece with intricate carvings of leaves and vines along its curved sides. Amelia finished sewing the last of the baby clothes and organizing the small space that would serve as the nursery corner in their bedroom. On the last day of the year, as they sat before the fire watching the old year tick away, Amelia felt the first twinge of discomfort, a tightening across her abdomen that made her catch her breath. "Adam," she said, trying to keep her voice calm, "I think perhaps you should send Tommy for Dr. Parker in the morning." His head snapped up, eyes widening. "Is it time?" "Not yet," she assured him. "But soon, I think." Adam was on his feet immediately. "I'll go myself, right now." "Don't be silly," Amelia protested. "It's nearly midnight and snowing." The doctor said first babies often take their time. "We have hours yet, maybe even a day or more." Though clearly reluctant, Adam agreed to wait until first light unless her condition changed dramatically. He spent the night beside her, alert to her every movement, ready to ride for help at a moment's notice. Dawn broke clear and cold on the first day of 1890. Amelia's discomfort had increased through the night, the contractions growing stronger and more regular. As the sun crested the horizon, Adam pressed a kiss to her forehead. "I'm going for the doctor now. Tommy will stay with you until I return." She nodded, gripping his hand through another contraction. "Hurry back." The hours that followed tested Amelia's strength and resolve as she'd never been tested before. The pain came in waves, increasingly powerful, increasingly frequent. Tommy Fletcher, barely 15 and terrified at the prospect of a birthing woman, hovered anxiously in the doorway. "Should I do something, Mrs. Thornton?" he asked repeatedly. "Get something for you. Just keep the fire going, Tommy," Amelia managed between contractions. "And perhaps some water." It seemed an eternity before she heard the sound of horses approaching. Then Adam was there, his face tight with concern, Dr. Parker close behind him. "How are you, my dear?" the doctor asked briskly, removing his coat and rolling up his sleeves. "Ready for this to be over," Amelia replied with a wan smile that turned into a grimace as another contraction seized her. Dr. Parker examined her quickly. "You're progressing well," he announced. "Not much longer now." Adam knelt beside the bed, taking her hand. "You're the strongest woman I know," he told her. "You can do this." His unwavering faith in her gave Amelia courage as the labor intensified. Hours blurred together in a haze of pain and effort. Through it all, Adam remained steadfast, wiping her brow, supporting her back, murmuring encouragement. As afternoon faded toward evening, Dr. Parker announced it was time to push. Gathering her remaining strength, Amelia bore down with each contraction, clinging to Adam's hand like a lifeline. "I see the head," Dr. Parker exclaimed. "One more push, Mrs. Thornton." With a final, monumental effort, Amelia felt the baby slip from her body. A moment of breathless silence followed, then a robust cry filled the room, the most beautiful sound she'd ever heard. "A son," Dr. Parker announced, placing the squalling infant on Amelia's chest. "A fine, healthy boy." Tears streamed down Amelia's face as she gazed at her child for the first time, red-faced and indignant at his abrupt entry into the world, but perfect in every way. Adam leaned over them both, his own eyes wet with emotion. "He's beautiful," he whispered, "just like his mother." In that moment, as Amelia held her son and felt Adam's strong presence beside her, the journey that had brought them together, the shame, the banishment, the hasty marriage, all of it receded into insignificance. This was their family now. This was what mattered. "What shall we call him?" Adam asked softly. Amelia looked up at the man who had given her and her child his name, his protection, and his heart. "I thought perhaps Samuel, after your father." Adam's face registered surprise, then deep gratitude. "Samuel William Thornton," he said, testing the name. "It's perfect, as Dr. Parker completed his work and prepared to leave, promising to return in a few days to check on mother and child. Adam saw him to the door. "You have a fine family there, Thornton," the doctor said, clapping him on the shoulder. "Take good care of them." "I intend to," Adam replied with quiet certainty. "Every day of my life." Returning to the bedroom, he found Amelia gazing down at their sleeping son, her expression one of wonder and exhaustion. "You should rest," he told her, gently taking the baby and placing him in his new cradle. "Stay with me," she murmured, already half asleep. "Always," Adam promised, stretching out beside her on the bed and drawing her carefully into his arms. As snow fell softly outside their window and the fire crackled in the hearth, the little family slept secure in each other, bound by love that had grown from the most unlikely of beginnings. Spring came early to the Oklahoma Territory in 1890. By March, the land was already greening, wildflowers dotting the rolling hills around the Thornton homestead. In the 4 months since Samuel's birth, the homestead had seen many changes, some small, like the rocking chair Adam had crafted for Amelia to nurse the baby, and some more significant, like the foundation being laid for an addition to the cabin. 2 more rooms, Adam explained as he worked. A proper bedroom for Samuel when he's older, and a parlor where you can receive guests. Amelia watched him work, Samuel sleeping contentedly in her arms. The baby had thrived from the beginning, growing plump and strong on his mother's milk. With his father's blue eyes and a tuft of hair that promised to be the same honey blonde as his mother's, he was, in Amelia's admittedly biased opinion, the most beautiful child ever born. Their life had settled into a new rhythm dictated by Samuel's needs. Adam had taken on more of the household duties to allow Amelia time with the baby, proving himself as adept at domestic tasks as he was at ranching. The tenderness with which he cared for his son, for Adam, never once thought of Samuel as anything but his own, only deepened Amelia's love for him. Elizabeth Anderson had kept her promise, arriving the day after Samuel's birth with tears and gifts, defying her husband's prohibition. She visited regularly now, always when Philip was away on business, bringing news and small presents for her grandson. "He's growing so fast," she marveled on her most recent visit, "and he has your smile, Amelia." "But Adam's temperament, thank goodness," Amelia laughed. "He's so calm and observant, just like his father." The words came naturally now. In her heart, Adam was Samuel's father in every way that mattered. On a mild April afternoon, as Amelia sat on the porch nursing Samuel while Adam mended a bridle nearby, they heard the sound of an approaching wagon. Looking up, Amelia was astonished to see her father's carriage coming up the long drive to their homestead. "Adam," she said urgently, quickly adjusting her shawl to cover herself and the nursing baby. He was on his feet instantly, moving to stand protectively beside her as the carriage pulled to a stop. Philip Anderson stepped down, his stern countenance as forbidding as ever. To Amelia's greater shock, her sisters Beatrice and Margaret descended after him. "Father," Amelia acknowledged, her voice carefully neutral. Philip Anderson stood stiffly before them, hat in hand, his gaze flickering briefly to the baby before settling on his daughter's face. "Amelia," he said formally. "Thornton." Adam nodded but remained silent, his hand coming to rest on Amelia's shoulder in silent support. An awkward silence stretched between them until Beatrice, always the boldest of the Anderson girls, stepped forward. "We've come to meet our nephew," she announced, her young face alight with excitement. "Mother says he's beautiful." "Beatrice," Philip admonished, but without real heat. Amelia looked up at her father, searching his face for some sign of softening. "Would you like to meet your grandson, father?" A muscle twitched in his jaw, but he gave a short nod. "That's why we've come." With careful dignity, Amelia adjusted Samuel so that his tiny face was visible. "This is Samuel William Thornton." Beatrice and Margaret crowded close immediately, cooing over the baby's tiny features. After a moment's hesitation, Philip stepped forward as well, his stern expression faltering as he gazed down at his first grandchild. "He looks like you did as an infant," he said gruffly. "Same eyes." The simple observation, offered without anger or judgment, felt like an olive branch extended across the chasm that had separated them for nearly a year. "Would you like to hold him?" Amelia offered. Surprise flickered across her father's face, followed by something that might have been longing. Yes." With care, Amelia placed Samuel in his grandfather's arms. Philip Anderson held the baby awkwardly at first, then with growing confidence as Samuel regarded him solemnly. "Strong boy," he commented. "Good weight to him." Adam spoke for the first time. "He's a blessing to us every day." Philip's gaze shifted to the man who had married his disgraced daughter, measuring him anew. "You've built something good here, Thornton. Land looks well managed." "Thank you, sir," Adam replied. "I've worked hard to make a proper home for Amelia and Samuel." The acknowledgement seemed to satisfy something in Philip. Handing the baby back to Amelia, he cleared his throat. "Your mother misses you," he said. "The house isn't the same without you." It was as close to an apology as he was likely to offer. Amelia recognized it for the concession it was. "Perhaps you could all stay for supper," she suggested. "I've made plenty." Philip hesitated, then nodded. "That would be acceptable." As they moved inside, Adam caught Amelia's eye over her father's head, his expression conveying both pride in her gracious handling of the situation and a promise of continued support, whatever came next. Supper was a stilted affair at first, conversation halting and careful. But as the meal progressed, the tension gradually eased. Margaret shared news of her upcoming wedding to a young banker from Guthrie. Beatrice described her plans to attend teachers' college in the fall, and even Philip unbent enough to discuss the cattle market with Adam. By the time they departed, promises had been exchanged. The Thorntons would bring Samuel to Sunday dinner at the Anderson Ranch next week, and Philip would send one of his men to help Adam with the addition to the cabin. As they stood waving goodbye to the departing carriage, Amelia leaned against her husband, emotion overwhelming her. "I never thought he would come," she whispered. Adam's arm tightened around her waist. "He's a proud man, but not a foolish one. He knows what he nearly lost." That night, with Samuel sleeping peacefully in his cradle, Amelia and Adam lay together in the quiet darkness, reflecting on the day's unexpected turn. "You know," Adam mused, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on her arm, "in a strange way, we owe our happiness to your father's stubbornness." Amelia propped herself up on one elbow to look at him. "How so?" "If he hadn't banished you that day," Adam explained, "I wouldn't have found you on the road. We might never have married. Samuel might not be ours." The thought was sobering. For all the pain and shame that had preceded their union, Amelia couldn't regret the path that had led her to this man, this home, this life. "You ever?" She hesitated. "Do you ever wish Samuel were truly yours by blood?" Adam sat up, taking her face in his hands with unusual intensity. "Listen to me, Amelia Thornton. That boy is mine in every way that matters. I was there when he drew his first breath. I've held him through his tears and celebrated his smiles. I will teach him to ride and rope, to read and write, to be an honorable man." His voice grew husky with emotion. "Blood means nothing compared to love, and I love him fiercely just as I love you." Tears spilled down Amelia's cheeks at the depth of feeling in his words. "We're so blessed to have you," she whispered. "The blessing is mine," Adam countered, drawing her close. The years that followed brought further blessings to the Thornton family. The homestead prospered under Adam's careful management, expanding from the original claim to include additional acreage purchased from a neighbor returning east. The herd grew, and with it, their financial security. The cabin expanded too, eventually becoming a proper house with 4 bedrooms, a spacious kitchen, and the parlor Adam had promised Amelia. Samuel grew from infant to toddler to sturdy young boy, joined in time by a sister, Elizabeth, born in the spring of 1892, and twins, James and Joseph, who arrived to general astonishment in the winter of 1895. Relations with the Anderson family continued to improve gradually. Philip never directly acknowledged the circumstances of Amelia's marriage, but his growing affection for Samuel and later his other grandchildren spoke volumes. By the time Elizabeth was born, Sunday dinners at the Anderson ranch were a regular tradition. True to his word, Adam raised Samuel as his own, never once by word or deed suggesting the boy was anything but a Thornton through and through. As Samuel grew, certain mannerisms and expressions sometimes reminded Amelia of Jackson Miller, but these were fleeting shadows quickly dispelled by the stronger imprint of the man who had truly been his father in all ways that mattered. On a warm June day in 1899, 10 years after their hasty wedding, Adam and Amelia stood on the porch of their home watching their children play in the yard. Samuel, now a lanky 9-year-old with his father's quiet confidence, 7-year-old Elizabeth with her mother's gentle nature, and the rambunctious 4-year-old twins, who seemed to have inherited their father's skill with horses and their mother's love of books in equal measure. "Did you ever imagine this?" Amelia asked, leaning against her husband's solid frame. "That day when you found me on the road with just a cart and my shame." Adam's arm tightened around her waist. "Not in my wildest dreams," he admitted. "I hoped we might find contentment, perhaps even friendship. But this," he gestured to their thriving ranch, their beautiful home, their healthy children, "this exceeds anything I dared hope for." "You saved me," Amelia said softly. Adam shook his head. "No, my love, we saved each other." As the setting sun bathed the Oklahoma landscape in golden light, Amelia reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. From disgrace and banishment had come the greatest blessing of her life, a true marriage built on respect, grown in friendship, and flourishing in deep, abiding love. Samuel looked up from his game, waving excitedly. "Pa, come see what I built." "Duty calls," Adam chuckled, pressing a kiss to Amelia's temple before stepping down to join their son. Watching them together, the man who had claimed her and her unborn child that desperate morning, and the boy who had never known any father but him, Amelia's heart overflowed with gratitude. Her father had banished her for being with child. The cowboy had ridden after her and called her wife. And together, they had built a life more beautiful than she could have imagined, a testament to the power of choice, of commitment, of love that grows strongest when tested by fire.